Do you want to start fishing with a 10-inch worm, but you don't know where to start? We're going to talk about that. Hello and welcome back to another episode of 5 Minute Fish Talk, a show where I have 5 minutes to discuss all things fishing. This show appears every single Friday at 8 a.m. Eastern Time Zone, so click the red subscribe button and the bell button below to stay tuned. I just loaded 5 minutes on this time of year. You know what that means. Time to get real. We're talking about 10-inch worms today, and actually a viewer reached out and told me that this is a subject that he'd like to hear about. His name is Jeremy Erdman. Did I say that right? Not sure. He reached out on Instagram, and he's like, hey man, I want to learn how to fish a 10-inch worm. I've been eyeing them for a while, and I don't really know where to start. That's where I am going to hopefully help, but what I can tell you is this. A 10-inch worm is like any other plastic. You just got to go out there, throw it on your Texas rig, Carolina rig, whatever it may be, and develop a little bit of confidence in it. It's not always easy to do that. It's easier said than done, but hopefully by me sharing some of my experiences with you as well as kind of my tips, hopefully that'll help you develop a little bit of confidence before you even hit the water. So why do I fish them? I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story here. When I was in college doing the whole college tournament thing, I hadn't fished them a lot. I'd fished them a few times before then, but then there was this one tournament early on in my fishing team career. And I was with my buddy, and he's like he was flipping like a big creature bait, and I wanted to throw something a little bit different behind him. So I was like, well, maybe I'll throw this 10-inch worm. And he had thrown them in the past, and he's like, yeah, those tend to work pretty well. Why don't you try that? I throw it behind him, and I absolutely smoke the fish. We won the tournament. We caught like 20 pounds, which in Kansas is pretty solid weight. But ever since then, the moral of the story is this, ever since then, I've been hooked on 10-inch worms. These things are big fish baits. I'm talking, it's a huge profile bait. You're probably not going to catch fish all day long on them. But what you are going to do is you're going to catch a big one. I've caught more 3 to 5 pounders on these baits than a lot of other baits in my box. As far as the soft plastic goes, like a ribbon tail worm is one of the oldest school baits. But guess what? There's a reason it's still available in the market today. It's because it flat out catches them. So at the bare minimum, you should pick up a few and start to think about, should I fish them? Where should you fish them though? Where should you fish these baits? I tend to like to throw them around. I throw them in muddy water more often than I would throw them in clear water, personally, because they are such a big profile and they kick a lot of water. Not to say they won't work in clear water. You obviously would just want to adjust your colors, more like a green pumpkin rather than a black and blue. But I tend to fish them in dirtier water, and I love to fish them around laydowns. If I'm fishing around really, really thick brush and so on and so forth, a lot of times I'll fish a little bit more compact bait, so that way it can get through the brush easier. Because this is so long, a lot of times that tail will like hang up on a limb, and you kind of have to keep shaking it to get it through, whereas a craw will just go right through. You get to the bass and you keep moving. But, like I said, I love fishing these around laydowns. I like fishing them over big grass beds. I like fishing them offshore on points, on drop-offs, so on and so forth. When it comes to a rigging these, it's basically a Texas rig or a Carolina rig. If I'm fishing deep, I would throw a Carolina rig. If I'm fishing shallower or just in grass, that's where a Texas rig is going to come into play. I don't fish a Carolina rig a lot, so I tend to Texas rig these. 5/0 hook is what you're going to look for. And then just whatever weight you decide is necessary. Personally, I'm kind of a fan of the 1/4 ounce, 5/16 ounce weights. Keep it pretty light. I try to keep things as light as possible without going too crazy. But then the next couple things that I want to talk about is when to fish them. The only times of the year that I tend to fish a bait like this would be summer and early fall. I don't really like throwing these in the spring. I definitely would not throw it during the winter, but it does tend to work very, very well in the summer and fall. And I don't know. I don't really know why it is. I guess it's just kind of where it performs best. Just kind of matches up with those seasons, and it's big baits, and it's just a big sluggish bass that just wants something easy and slow moving, and boom, you got it. And then the last thing that I would say is, what kind of gear would you use? Obviously, you're going to use the same kind of gear you would use for any other big Texas rigs. So something like a 7 to 7.5 foot rod, anywhere from 15 to 20 pound test, 5/0 hook, like I said, and then your weight. So I would use a high-speed reel just to pick up the line as quickly as possible. But overall, that's really it. I mean, there's not a lot to this, and I wish that I did have a big secret for you. But I think the big thing is just to find some good muddy water where there's some fish, throw it a few times, try to develop a little bit of confidence in it. And as you fish it more and more, what you're going to realize is that this thing is quite powerful indeed. So let's turn this off. I've got 40 seconds left. I'm hammering through because I've drank so much coffee. Thank you so very much for watching. Hopefully this helped you a little bit. If you have any questions, make sure to drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, you know what I'm going to say. Have yourself a fantastic weekend, and we'll catch you next time.